Nigeria records 594 new coronavirus cases. President, governors, lawmakers, others mourn former Governor Abiola Ajimobi as family postpones burial. In international news, Covid-19 leaves Brazilian domestic workers jobless. And in sport, Australia, New Zealand to host 2023 Women's World Cup.
This is ANN News.
I am Olajumoke Olatunji. Nigeria recorded 594 new cases of COVID-19 on Thursday, bringing to 22,614 the total number of confirmed cases nationwide. Lagos recorded 159 new infections, Delta 106. 20 other states, including the Federal Capital Territory, also recorded new cases, and CDC further confirmed 7,822 persons have been discharged so far, while 549 have died. Tributes have continued to pour in for Oyo State's former governor, Senator Abiola Ajimobi, who died on Thursday as a result of COVID-19 complications. Ajimobi was also Deputy National Chairman South of the All Progressives Congress. President Muhammadu Buhari has described the late Ajimobi as a man of integrity whose contributions to the development of Oyo State and the nation would always be remembered. Ajimobi's successor, Governor Seyi Makinde, describes him as a leader with sterling qualities. Makinde has directed that the state's flag be flown at half-mast today. Lagos State former governor and national leader of the All Progressives Congress, Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu, and other governors have described the late Ajimobi as not just a colleague, but a pillar of support to the Nigeria's Governors Forum and to the country in general. The People's Democratic Party (PDP) National Publicity Secretary Kola Ologbondiyan says Ajimobi's death is a national tragedy and that Ajimobi died at a time the country needed his wealth of experience. The PDP describes him as an exceptionally brilliant administrator, outstanding legislator, and a man of peace. Ajimobi and his wife tested positive in May. His wife beat the virus, but he never recovered. He went into a coma on Monday and never came out. Ajimobi became a senator in 2001 and then governor in 2011. And while Lagos State's government says Senator Ajimobi died of multiple organ failure, Lagos Commissioner for Health, Professor Akinola Abayomi, explained the multiple organ failure was caused by complications from COVID-19. Abayomi says Ajimobi had tested negative to COVID-19, but the illness had caused his health to deteriorate. Ajimobi's family has postponed his burial. The family says official announcements will be made later. They also say burial arrangements will be in accordance with the guidelines of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, NCDC. Edo State's Governor, Godwin Obaseki, will be the flag bearer for the People's Democratic Party in the state's September governorship poll. Obaseki emerged as the party's candidate after his closest rival to the PDP governorship election ticket, Ken Imasugbo, stepped down some minutes into the primary election. The PDP primary was supervised by a joint team comprising of the Bauchi State Governor, Bala Mohammed, and his Zamfara and Oyo counterparts, Bello Matawal and Seyi Makinde. Obaseki will face his political rival, Osage Ize-Iyamu of the ruling All Progressives Congress, and other candidates in the governorship election. Edo State Resident Electoral Commissioner Johnson Alalibo has confirmed 9 political parties have concluded their party primaries and are ready for the governorship election. Alalibo disclosed this on Thursday while monitoring the People's Democratic Party's primary in Benin. Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, has blamed the federal government for the disturbing low placement of Nigerian universities by the Center for World University Ranking. The union says this is because the federal government failed to make education a priority and provide an enabling environment. Chairman of the University of Ibadan chapter of the union, Professor Ayo Akinwole, says the two universities, University of Ibadan and the University of Nigeria, Nsukka, which presently hold national rankings of first and second in Nigeria, could not make the top 1,000, while 7 of 13 best universities in South Africa made the best 1,000 varsities in the world. Akinwole says the ranking had vindicated the struggle by ASU to get the government to commit not less than 1/4 of the national budgets to education. Instead of doing that, the professor says the government keeps reducing the education budget. Rivers State government is challenging the federal government's deduction from the federal account to pay for the Nigeria Police Trust Fund. Rivers Governor Nyesom Wike says it is not the responsibility of the state government to fund the police. Wike is asking the courts to declare as unconstitutional section of the law permitting the direct deduction of any sum or percentage of revenue accruing to the Federation account for the purpose of providing money for the Nigeria Police Trust Fund. Rivers State is also asking for a refund of the monies deducted from the Federation account and paid into the NPTF.
Coming up, African news. Tunisia's unemployment rate soars amid COVID-19. And later, international news. COVID-19 leaves Brazilian domestic workers jobless.
You are watching ANN.
Somewhere in the world, every second of the day, news is happening. And of course, Nigeria is bustling with news day and night. That is why ANN doesn't sleep. Our eyes are peeled, wide open, so no story escapes our radar. We stay abreast of world events and happenings at home. We keep you up to the minute in the world of sports. We give you information to stay on top of your investments and all the hard facts you'll need to navigate your day. If you miss us on air, you can keep up to date on our website and on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. We are ANN, African News Network. We do news right in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. Tunisia is not immune to the global economic downturn caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. A joint Tunisian government and United Nations study has made an alarming projection of a spike in unemployment in the North African country whose economy has been severely affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Respondent Adnin Chawochi reports from Tunis.
This recent study on the economic impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the Tunisian economy for the year 2020 was conducted by the Ministry of Development, Investment and International Cooperation and the United Nations Development Programme. It has also revealed that the number of unemployed went up by 274,500 in 2020 alone.
The government's strategy is to promote transparency and to inform the public opinion through a series of studies on the economic and social repercussions of the worst global sanitary crisis in the country. The growth rate will stand at negative 4.4%. The job sector will be hit and the number of unemployed will increase dramatically.
Experts assert that with a poverty rate of 19%, which may worsen further, Tunisia is going back 15 years, with 475,000 more people falling below the poverty line due to the loss of income. The number of people below the poverty line would therefore be expected to rise from the current 1.6 million to 2 million.
The COVID-19 crisis is the biggest crisis after the Second World War. Although all measures were necessary to protect the population from the pandemic, they had paralyzed economic activity. The income poverty affects women much more than men, who were much more exposed than men to the risks of impoverishment.
UNDP resident representative noted that Tunisia must focus on 5 priorities in order to cope with the repercussions of the COVID-19 pandemic.
These priorities should include strengthening health service systems, guaranteeing social protection for the most vulnerable, supporting and strengthening jobs and SMEs, and ensuring that macroeconomic measures currently being taken by the government benefit all stakeholders, especially the most disadvantaged.
The study also shows that the COVID-19 shock would accentuate the financial fragility of some economic sectors, namely non-manufacturing industries minus 29%, tourism minus 23%, transport minus 19.6%, and textiles minus 17.7%. In the short term, the study conducted by Tunisian authorities and UNDP advocates mitigating the impacts and relieving the burden on populations and businesses through income transfers. In the long term, the government must prepare the economy and the population to withstand shocks and digitization.
Zimbabwe's central bank has abandoned a currency peg it had introduced in March. It now says it would allow the rates to be set by an auction system. Governor of the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, John Mangudia, was said to have unilaterally imposed the peg of 25 Zimbabwe dollars to the US dollar against the advice of the bank's Monetary Policy Committee. This sets up a collision course between the Reserve Bank Governor and Finance Minister Mchili Nkube. Respondents Faraya Nwakutuya is in Harare.
Bids amounting to 11.4 million US dollars were received, with 10.3 million US dollars availed for raw materials and machinery, which topped the list of import needs. The auction replaces a discredited 25-to-1 US dollar peg.
It has the potential to be able now for the business sector to have access to foreign currency and for productive purposes, and also potential to be able now to begin to really create even, incentivize exports so that the productive sector can really get back now to business and increase their capacity utilization.
But it may not be able to improve allocation efficiency immediately.
We don't have enough foreign currency in this country to liquidate the market. And if you look at this Reserve Bank circular, it's clearly going to rely on exports and the liquidation of the 30-day expiration window of the foreign currency in the system. And if you look at our exports this year, they're going down.
The frequency of the allocations may also not suit businesses operating in a volatile environment.
So you can't wait for another week to get foreign currency. Business is not stationary for the next 6 days. So you see that they'll go for the black market rate or for foreign currency from the black market.
The auction system's immediate impact has been on the price of fuel, which rose 150%. Apart from the price shock, Panashe Badze, a small transport operator, is also counting the cost of the currency depreciation.
And with what past payments that we're receiving right now, that if we look at it, we're now making a loss. We can't even cover the fuel that we used.
Foreign currency auctions will be conducted every Tuesday, and what that will mean is a regular adjustment to the exchange rate, whose impact will be felt on prices of fuel and other commodities, which many here fear may be pushed beyond their reach.
Zimbabwe had targeted lowering inflation to single-digit territory by year-end, plans that look unlikely now as the year-on-year rate soared to 785% in May.
Malawi's opposition alliance is claiming victory for its candidate, Lazarus Kachewa, in a rerun of the 2019 presidential election held on Tuesday. after the court annulled previous election because of fraud. Malawi state and private media on Wednesday gave opposition Chakwara a comfortable 55% lead, with nearly three-quarters of votes counted against Mutharika's 40%. Electoral Commission Chairman Chifundu Kachali has urged Malawians to wait for the official result, which was taking time to collate because the ballots had to be transported back to head office from locations across the lakeside Southern African nation. A win for Chakwera would be a dramatic reversal of last year's discredited poll that handed the presidency back to the incumbent who has been in power since 2014. The election on Tuesday has been regarded as a test of the ability of African courts to fight ballot fraud since Malawi's judicial infuriated President Peter Mutharika in February by overturning the results of last year's vote. Electoral officials said voting day on Tuesday was largely peaceful, apart from some sporadic reports of violence in opposition strongholds, and Malawi has remained calm while awaiting the results.
When we return, international news. COVID-19 leaves Brazilian domestic workers jobless. And later, sport. Australia, New Zealand to host 2023 Women's World Cup.
You are watching ANN.
We are on the road every day, canvassing throughout Africa for news you really need. We follow this story everywhere, from every corner of Nigeria to the wide African expanse. We bring you what's making headlines. We connect you with news you can use. ANN, African News Network, in a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News. The statue of America's 26th President, Theodore Roosevelt, that has stood for decades at New York City Central Park West entrance of the American Museum of National History, is to be removed in the midst of renewed criticism that it is racist and that it glorifies colonialism. Officials said on Sunday on the museum's website that they have asked New York City, which owns the statue, to move it. Correspondent Sarah Walton reports.
The statue of President Theodore Roosevelt has sat on this plinth outside the Natural History Museum since 1940, but it has long attracted controversy because of the way it depicts him leading a near-naked African-American man and a Native American man in traditional dress. For many people, this has become a symbol of the country's history of colonialism and racial discrimination. Now, the protests sparked by the death of George Floyd in police custody in Minneapolis in May have led to a renewed debate about US monuments, with some local governments deciding to remove some, demonstrators vandalizing others, or even pulling them down themselves. Earlier this month, police were called in to guard a statue of the Italian explorer Christopher Columbus here in New York because of controversy about the way he treated indigenous people in America. President Donald Trump has reacted to the decision about this statue on Twitter, saying ridiculous, don't do it. And the president has previously said that attempts to remove historic monuments were being led by what he called an unhinged left-wing mob. But the museum itself has asked for this statue to be removed. It has the backing of the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio, and also the support of the former president's family. Roosevelt's great-grandson has released a statement saying that this statue does not truly reflect the legacy of Theodore Roosevelt. The museum has said that this decision was based on the composition of this statue and that it will continue to honour the work of the former president as a naturalist and conservationist. No date has been set for when it will be removed, and it's not clear yet what will happen to it after.
Brazil, the last country in the Western Hemisphere to abolish slavery, has about 7 million domestic workers, more than any other country in the world. Most are women and black. A large number of them is now out of work as COVID-19 cases soar in the country. Correspondent Lucrecia Francio reports from Rio.
46-year-old Marilda Ferreira has been a maid since she was 10 years old. But the only house she's cleaning these days is her own. Her clients do not want her coming into their homes due to the coronavirus pandemic.
With this epidemic, I found out just how many people are truly ungrateful. I work 6 days a week and sometimes even on Sunday. Almost none of my clients have called me and offered to help.
Only one of Marilda's employers is still paying her so she can survive.
It's an inheritance of slavery.
Mary Castro is a sociologist who says many more employers could and should be helping their maids during the health crisis.
They don't have any state protections in terms of legal protections. The middle class don't consider poor people as human.
According to the International Labour Organization, Brazil has more domestic workers than any other country in the world, and now most of them are jobless.
But some help is coming from union organizations across Brazil, like this one in Rio, which launched a campaign called Look After Those Who Look After You.
Cleide Pinto, president of the local Nova Iguaçu union, says she's alarmed by how hard domestic workers have been hit and shocked by what she says is borderline slavery.
There have been several cases of employers telling their maids they can't go home until the pandemic is over, so many are in a sort of house imprisonment.
That is illegal, and the union has filed lawsuits while supporting its members by collecting and distributing food donations. Meanwhile, maids like Marilda are becoming more desperate for the pandemic to end, so they can get back to work. Still, Marilda says she's jaded, and most of her employers will not be able to sweep away their lack of solidarity.
Eiffel Tower, one of the most visited sites in Paris, has reopened to the public after more than 100 days of closure as a result of Covid-19. It was the longest stretch for which the landmark has been closed, and the monument's management hopes to get operations fully back to normal later in the summer. Respondent Ross Cullen reports.
The most visited monument in the world, opening for the first time since France's lockdown ended. It's a day of celebration for the 130-year-old monument, with tourists now able to visit once more despite the sanitary measures in place.
The measures for COVID in a way give you more of a sense that you can get in faster and really enjoy your time. I think we're just all used to the safety measures as part of society and life, and to have it as part of this experience didn't feel any different in that way, and it was easier because we were able to get up a lot faster and keep some space. You don't feel pushed around.
Real okay. Because it isn't that busy, so you can keep your distance in the line and the stairs. You can't. It's okay. It's okay.
There are social distancing markers throughout. Visitors still can't go right to the top, so those wanting to enjoy the famous view from the 276-meter high lookout will have to wait.
This is the view from the second floor of the Eiffel Tower, as high as you can go at the moment. All the tourists visiting the monument are having to use the stairs to get here. The lifts are too small to enforce social distancing.
The Eiffel Tower lost $10 million a month while it was closed, and its managers are conscious that shutting the tower affects other businesses around the monument.
I know that we will recover. It will take time, of course, but it's very important. And it's very important for the Eiffel Tower, but for all the system, all the touristic system in Paris, in France, because the hotels, the guides, our guides, the restaurants, we need them and they need us.
The Eiffel Tower is a Parisian landmark of world significance. 3/4 of the visitors are from overseas, and authorities are keen to get the summer season back up and running. It took just 3 hours to close the Eiffel Tower back in March, but it's going to take much longer than that to return to normal.
Up next, sports. Australia, New Zealand to host 2023 Women's World Cup. Please stay with us.
You are watching ANN.
Whether in your house, at your office, on your phone or online, we are there. We have the facts behind the headlines. We cut to the chase with the news you really need. We cover every angle. We are the bigger, better news network. We are African News Network. ANN. Watch ANN News on MITV from a truly African spirit.
Welcome back. This is ANN News in Sport. The Nigeria Football Federation will get 600 million naira when FIFA releases the COVID-19 relief fund for each of its national associations across the world. FIFA says the coronavirus relief plan for world football is $1.5 billion. The governing body has reviewed a three-step plan, including specific allocation of funds to help women's football through the COVID-19 crisis. FIFA also confirmed a number of changes to the men's international match calendar, including a new Pan-Arab tournament to be played in Qatar in 2021. Also, FIFA has announced Australia and New Zealand now have a joint bid to host the 2023 Women's World Cup. The two countries got the nod ahead of Colombia, which was the only other rival in the running after Brazil and Japan dropped out of the race in June. The 2023 version will be the first in the women's game to feature 32 sides. The Women's World Cup competition is scheduled to take place from July to August 2023. Australia and New Zealand's bid received 22 of the 35 votes cast by FIFA Council members. Colombia got 13 votes. That is ANN News this evening. Thank you for joining us. For details on these and other breaking stories, visit our website, annafrica.news. Conversation continues on our social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at ANN Africa TV. I am Olajumoke Olatuji. Have a safe weekend.